I'm going to keep it private, maybe a little even more informal than I had planned, but I'm just going with the flow here, and I'll show you what I got for you. So I happen to have been saved, from eternal hell and damnation over AOL instant messaging. This is where my journey to church and religion really started. One night, sitting at my parents' wicker family desk, with that massive screen that we used to, have to manage. And I used to spend hours typing with friends over AOL instant messaging. And one night, my friend Leslie asked me, "Have you ever accepted Christ into your heart?" And I'm 15, and I'm like, well, no, what is that even? And I have no idea what she told me, but whatever it was, it convinced me that I needed to do it. And to do it, it meant that I had to say this exact prayer, to officially invite Christ into my heart and become a true Christian. So that night, I told her, yes, let me know what it is. She gave me the verbatim. I remember praying it in my head because my parents were close by and I was kind of embarrassed that I was actually taking this step in my life in a weird way. And I remember in a strange way having, how sometimes you get that chemical rush? And that chemical rush where I thought was like some kind of spiritual experience, but in reality, there's just, neurochemicals at play. But it's one of those things that fed into me starting to go into this Christian life. Wasn't really raised in a Christian home. My parents went to church, but it was never a big deal. We never talked about it or anything like that. But the reality is that obviously I stand before you today not religious. So in a lot of ways, I'm a failed product of AOL evangelism because I no longer hold any religious beliefs. But before reasoning my way out of religion, I was a part of church life, and what I loved most about it was the community and the connection with other people. Really, that was the heart of pretty much everything that I loved about church. But the problem is that once you leave church, or heaven forbid, start to express any disbelief, you're no longer a part of their tribe. Churches are exclusive. They're inherently dogmatic, and if you don't believe the way they do, and your neurons don't fire the way they think they should, then you can't be a part of their group. Now, unlike most new parents, my husband and I actually left the church when we had kids. It dawned on us that we didn't want our kids exposed to being told that they were broken, because that's kind of in essence what a lot of churches that I was in expressed to kids. And so we made the decision that we didn't want to be a part of that anymore. And the problem is, we're a young new family with kids, and we don't have a community anymore, and we really missed it. And then it dawned on me, well, why can't we do something like church, but remove all the stuff that I don't like? The dogma, the exclusive stuff, having just one person talk at you every week, having the same songs from a hymnal sung, or even just worship music. Come on, let's get real. Even though the worship music can be kind of fun, it's the same stuff over and over again. Because, they're drilling those words into your head. But it dawned on me that there's a possibility here of doing something like that, remove it, and that's why I started Kansas City Oasis. So today I'm going to talk with you about how sharing a community is actually pretty crucial, and how providing an oasis provides tremendous value. So a community is crucial because it simply is in our DNA. Homo sapiens have been around about 200,000 years. So in that 200,000 period of time, we were tribal. We lived in groups of about 100 to 150 people. It wasn't until about 5,000 years ago that we started forming settlements. And then, Jesus showed up 2,000 years ago. So it took him a really long time to come save us all. So this is my thank you, Jesus. But our tribal side resonates with who we are, resonates with how we interact with each other. When we were in tribal groups, we pulled resources, we pulled personalities and skill sets. We also had the dreaded other. You didn't run into another tribe because it had be really bad news if you did. They'd either steal your resources or take your life. So it wasn't good news. Now, our tribal side still resonates with us today. You see it in our TV shows. Shows like Seinfeld. Shows like Friends. How I Met Your Mother. And then also Cheers. Their slogan, what is it? Everybody knows your name and is Anyone else know?
Always ready.
Good. All right. Or is this like a younger crowd? That's what I just this there. Everyone knows your name and is glad you came. We also see how crucial community is in. We also see how crucial community is in research on physical health. So every year I take the dreaded trip to an annual exam at the doctor's office. So not only do you get wait, at least in mine, you get wait in a public place and you get ushered to this cold, dark, sterile room and wait in the fluorescent lights for the arsenal of questions that you always get asked by the doctor, which usually include how much do you smoke, do you drink a lot, are you eating well, what else, oh, do you exercise? But you know what they don't ask you, and this always just astounds me. They don't ask you, how many friends do you have? Do you have a close network of sort of supportive people? Or do you belong into any groups? How important are those groups to you? And the reality is that they should be asking you those questions because they have as much influence on your health as quitting smoking, as drinking less, eating better, exercising more, all of those vices. So the good news is that means you can eat, drink, and be merry at secular conferences and at Oasis because it's just as good for your health. So keep that in mind. Belonging to a community also increases our longevity. So a research report in 2010 from Brigham Young University published a study that determined that people who enjoyed strong social ties had 50% increased likelihood of survival over a measured period of 7.5 years compared with people with weak or no social ties. And then in 2010, another Australian study looked at 188 people over the age of 100. And they found that having a close network of friends and family was a highly significant factor in their lifespan. Having a close community support also is good for your mental health. So with the sudden cold snap, just this week, I hate winter, I'm not going to lie about it all. When I wonder why we moved back, lived in Minneapolis for some time, we loved the city, hated the cold, moved to Nashville, and then we came back to Kansas City where I'm from because I wanted to be near family and have healthy kids. But I absolutely hate winter. And it just so happened that, winter has visited us a whole lot earlier this year. And so this week, one day, I was just feeling like Antoine. Woke up, kind of just not ready to take on the day, actually feeling really down. And when that happens to me, I don't know about you, but like the thoughts start racing, start thinking about all the things I need to do from managing my business, take care of my family, all of my nonprofit roles, and I started to get really overwhelmed. And so my graduate degree is in counseling, and I'm pretty well aware of what's going on in my head. And I know that one of the best remedies, at least for myself, to kind of get over that, is to phone a friend. So I simply reached out, called a friend, vented, had my little pity party, and actually, what's amazing? Even when I called my friend, I was like, this is probably not going to help. You know how these negative things just go? But it totally helped. Because having friendship and ability just to have another sounding board or someone just to listen is so good for our mental health. One of the things that when I became an out non-theist that I miss is that I kept some of my Christian friends. So I don't know those of you who are out as non-believers or whatever your label or non-label will be. But one of the things that I miss is that those friends closest to me who are still Christian, I don't go to them with my problems or challenges. I should say challenges. We all have challenges no matter what it is, it's life. And I can't go to them anymore because I know that they're going to say, well, you're having issues because you don't believe in God, or I'm active in the secular movement, so then they're like, man, you're really screwing up, So I can't go to them and be like, man, I'm really down about this or that, or I can't get them to understand exactly what I'm doing with this whole Oasis thing. It kind of perplexes them completely. So it wasn't really until I started Oasis that I had found other people that I could lean on, other people to find that support with. And Kansas City Oasis launched in April of this year, actually. Houston Oasis has been around for over 2 years. But it's been really incredible because I now have that friendship support back. There's another study that I find to be really, really interesting that looked at multiple cultures, first world cultures, I will add, that they wanted to see if there were any similarities across the board as to why certain people who reported a high level of well-being and life satisfaction, what factors did any of them have in common? And the only factor that they had in common was that those groups who reported high level of well-being, they had incredible support systems. And it's not just family. A lot of them had just really good friend support networks or groups that they belonged to. The whole belonging thing is a really important piece as well. Now this is true for extroverts as it is for introverts. I like to look at the need for community as on a spectrum. Like a lot of things, I think, in human nature, a lot of things are a spectrum. They're never black and white. So some of us have more frequency needs of community than others, and that's perfectly fine. But I think it's also important to recognize that introverts, although they might not stand out, speak out, say I'm an extrovert, so I can't speak for introverts all around, but I do know that all of us bring different things to the table, and us extroverts need your introverts just as much. So this is true as the community. We need everyone, to be a part of it, whether at different frequencies or at different times. Researchers are also finding that being a part of a group or a social support system may actually serve as a standalone strategy for those who can't afford standard therapies or those cities that don't have a lot of mental health counselors. These studies note that you can't just attend any group. You have to actually feel like you belong. So it's not about proximity, it's about feeling like you belong and are accepted with certain groups for this type of psychological effect to take hold. This sense of connection to a group rather than contact with individuals is actually what promotes mental health. So you can't just go to a yoga class and be in proximity to other people. You have to go somewhere where you feel like you can belong, where you can plug in and get involved. So where in our culture can you establish such long ties on a regular basis and actually with ease? And those two things are really important. So regular basis and easily accessible places to go. Where is that in our culture? At least in the Midwest. It's church. So sure, you can make friends going to your kid's soccer game, or you can make friends going to your local meetup, your monthly meetup groups, or you can find friends on OkCupid. I'm sure that works as well. But there's something to be said about the types of relationships that you establish within, religious institutions or church communities. If we're being honest, we should acknowledge that religion has provided a really valuable source of social support for countless people. In communities across America, churches, synagogues, and mosques have played a crucial role in strengthening the social fabric by feeding the hungry, befriending the lonely, comforting the troubled, and even serving as networks for job prospects and business opportunities. But the cultural tide is turning, hence everyone here today. Non-believers, sometimes referred to as the nuns, are the fastest growing demographic in our nation, comprising around 20% of the population. That's on the low side. And on that low side, this is Pew Research studies, 30% of the millennials supposedly identify as nun or unaffiliated. I will venture to say, there was another report that came out, but I have not had time to really check on the validity of it. I like to know, I have research methods, things that I want to make sure, I just don't believe in every study because they said, and you just believe it. I see a lot of people on the internet, there's a study and therefore it must be true. So this other one, though, said that it might be as high as 40% of the population would identify as unaffiliated. And I will venture to say that that is really probably highly likely because there are so many people still sitting in their church pews today, not buying into any of the dogma or ideologies, but staying there because that's their community. That's their extended family, support, and they don't want to lose that. That was one of the things that kept my husband and I sitting in church for a lot longer than we should have. We didn't want to lose that connection with other people. So while we nuns are happy to be rid of religious dogmas and ideologies, many of us still want the benefits of belonging. So why are we allowing churches to hold the monopoly on community? And I'm here to tell you that we don't have to anymore, and that we are quickly changing that. So providing an oasis brings tremendous value. So for those of you who are not familiar, I went to church. This is the decline. You guys have probably all seen this, right? The decline in religiosity from the 1950s to now. And actually at 2013, the plummet down, I mean, it's happening so quickly, it's like nothing we've seen in history. So, about Oasis. We are a weekly secular community. We have communities in Houston, which was the first, and then Kansas City, and then Dallas. Oasis launches in 2015. We are working with 5 cities currently in the U.S. that will eventually be coming out with their own Oasis at different times. We're not planning some like fancy big launch. Every community kind of is autonomous and working on starting their own dates. And then we have one actually in Canada that we're working on right now. And we hope to be working maybe with some of you as well. So, less than 2 months ago, Time Magazine actually featured Oasis and wrote that Oasis is the community model for non-believers nationwide. Time also recognized how secular communities can meet the needs that churches and religious institutions used to. I think that's huge. That's an international news source recognizing that secular communities can meet the same needs that churches and religious institutions used to. That should be a call to arms for all of us. We know who we are as people, as humanists, as members of our society. It's incredibly thrilling to see such a respected international news source recognize this. And I think it just simply confirms that exactly what we're doing is the next logical step in secularism. At Oasis, we are building community where it is okay to be who you are. You can relax. There's no God to impress. There's no religious authority to impress. You can simply just be. Our community strives to be an oasis of reason in a world often so unreasonable and driven by dogmas and ideologies. Oasis strives to be a place of acceptance, where it is fine to be who you are, no matter what label you carry or no matter what people label you as, whether you're straight, bi, gay, trans, polyamorous, vegan, carnivore, agnostic, freethinker, Pastafarian, Christian even, whatever. We don't care, and we don't want you to pretend. I love the image of Oasis because it's a place of refreshment, a place of recharging your batteries, not a place of escape. An oasis is where you get resupplied, re-watered, re-energized for the next stage in your journey. And that's why we chose the name. So what is the Oasis model? First, it means we create weekly opportunity to connect. So imagine you're on your first date, and you're gazing at each other from across the table, and you know that you want to have another date with this person. And they look at you and they say, gosh, we should do this again. Let's schedule this in 30 days, and we'll get back together again. You think that relationship's gonna really do really well? Are you gonna want to come back in 30 days? I guess it depends on how awesome it is. What if you only hang out with your child once a month? Are they gonna feel close to you? Probably not. Likewise, if you only have an event once a month and you miss 1 month, that's up to 60 days where you don't see those people. You can't build relationships on a once-a-month basis. And this is one of the things that we stress as Oasis, is that you have to have that level of frequency. Now, trust me, in church, there's not regular attendance, and by no means do we expect any form of regular attendance. Remember again how, we're free-thinking people, so we're not going to hold you to that standard. Oasis opted for a weekly model, not because we want to imitate the church. I can't say that enough. I hear it all the time. Get those comment threads that you shouldn't read kind of deal. We have no interest in imitating the church. But the reason why we do a weekly model is because it works. We also have our gatherings and programs on Sundays. Not as an acknowledgement of the day's sacredness, but simply because in our society, Sunday is the day that most people happen to be free and available, especially for families, and it's easier to gather a critical mass of people. Every Sunday, we offer a gathering, not a service. You will never hear me or Mike refer to what we're doing as a service. The media might do that, but we don't. It's more of a cross between a house concert and a TED Talk. At Oasis, we bring in local and regional musicians and get to hear an array of genres and type of music. In Kansas City, we have had a full jazz band come and play. We've had a spoken word artist and female rapper, Miss local Kansas City artists. Who else do I have up here? Bill Bledsoe is, I guess, one of the best guitar players in the Midwest. And he was actually playing, I think it's a Portuguese guitar, it had like 12 strings. It was really incredible. So we get to bring in an array of genre, all different kinds of music. This Sunday, we have an opera singer. And we've had like folk singers all the way to, acoustic guitar stuff. I mean, it's really incredible. In essence, we're creating an outlet for artistic expression, which is a way we can further celebrate the human experience every week. We also offer the chance for people to get together and discuss real-world principles supported by evidence and free thought, not scripture or revelation. At KC Oasis, we've had an Egyptologist come talk to us about King Tut. We've had Debbie Jackson, the mother of a transgender child, talk about raising her daughter. We've had Nate Phelps come and talk with us. And we often have Dr. Daryl Ray, who is going to be returning to Kansas City Oasis to speak again about the myth of sex and porn addiction. Now, what church is going to let you talk about that? At Oasis, there is no attempt to create rituals that are substitutes for religious rituals. We don't light candles, there are no secular benedictions, etc., no woo factor at all. Furthermore, we provide a place where your children can explore their developing worldviews, ask questions, and make friends in an environment that is supportive of critical thinking. Oh yeah, we also had Daisy, not to forget him at all. He's actually been out twice now. He also sang for us too. If I can get this, yeah, that's his name. With his wife, Michael. So, one of the most important reasons for organizing Kansas City Oasis is for children and families. So whether we like it or not, the churches are totally pursuing our children. When my son's classmates invite him to church and talk about how fun youth functions are, he wants to go and doesn't understand why we don't. So let's face it, churches do a lot of really fun things. Ski trips, lock-ins. You remember these? All kinds of really fun stuff. One of my favorite memories of being in youth group were the nights that we do capture the flag. Anyone remember playing that? Okay, good. On the way here, I asked my husband, I'm like, should I explain what capture the flag is? And he's like, do you explain what kickball is? You kick the ball. He's like, you capture the flag. So hopefully you all know. So I digress. I love playing capture the flag though. So we had, this was my Presbyterian days. I eventually fell into the Assemblies of God because of my wonderful husband and his family. But we would split the church in half, and we had tons of land, and wait till it's dark, and we split up into teams, and act like we were undercover people trying to take each other's flags. But what's really cool, and granted this is not what I want my children necessarily doing, but when you have your significant other as a part of your youth group, you find a really dark place, like behind a shed, and you practice your making out skills. And that really is one of my most fond memories of youth group. So I'm pretty sure that wasn't what they had in mind either, but I thought it was pretty awesome. So anyways, the church wants you to believe that it's all the supernatural stuff. That's the supernatural things that connects people. But in reality, the real magic is the social connection and the social opportunities that church provides. And it's a magic that we should no longer let churches monopolize over any longer. At Oasis, we just don't offer gatherings, but we create volunteer and social opportunities throughout the month. Now, I will say that this is where real connection and real community starts to develop, where you actually start experiencing life together. So in just over 6 months, Kansas City Oasis has held over 12 different volunteering or community service events. These are just our volunteer events. We do social events as well. 3 months in, I think it was midsummer, we did a blood drive, and we actually met our goal of 20 units of blood. On our third gathering, we had Be the Match come in, which is a bone marrow donor program, and we were able to register 18 new bone marrow donors, and hopefully continue to spread the word for others to register as well. We also help regularly at a domestic violence shelter where we bake and serve meals. In addition to that, gosh, it's been a lot. We've done work with the Humane Society, with Habitat for Humanity, and I know I'm forgetting some others as well. The one thing that's really been fascinating starting this is seeing the extreme desire to just have a secular opportunity to give back to the community, but not having to do it, under a lot of religious pressure. And that's been really incredible. So, since we are not here to do church, we are also not here to not do church, or constantly be reaffirming our disbelief in any type of religion. Richard Dawkins says that we don't get together as stamp collectors, as non-stamp collectors, to talk about how we don't collect stamps. So likewise with Oasis, we don't get together to talk about how we don't do religion. I don't see why some of us think that we keep beating the dead horse. Instead of wasting time on that, we talk about things churches wouldn't talk about. It's not always sex related, but that is always one example that I have. But our goal literally is to create dialogue and conversation and shared experiences. And we're not bringing in speakers to tell you what to believe or what to think. Religious communities have traditionally provided tangible benefits to their members that are typically not found in other arenas of life. And there's no reason why Oasis could not provide many of the same advantages to their members. Churches, synagogues, and mosques are frequently great places for networking with others on a variety of life issues. Business contacts develop and job opportunities are shared. The age diversity of typical religious community is also a bonus in this regard. With membership spanning from infants to the elderly, apart from church, most people do not belong to other groups with such a mixture of age or life backgrounds. You won't see it really anywhere else. Frequently, the older members impart their life wisdom through informal mentoring. A young adult member from Oasis expressed this in a talk she gave at a weekly gathering. She shared, "Since coming out as atheist, I've missed the intergenerational interaction that was really prevalent in the Catholic community. However, Houston Oasis has taken the role that church used to have because now I have models for families and successful adults who live without religion." And she added, Carl Sagan is great and all, but he's not going to find you a babysitter. She's got a really, really good point. There is far more to life in a humanist community than debunking religion and promoting science. After the theological underpinnings of religion have been dismantled, what's next? Real human needs remain, needs that can often be met within the context of community life. So where do I find a babysitter that's not going to pray with my child at bedtime? Who's going to drive me to my medical appointment when I can't drive myself? Or where will people be able to share a holiday meal when they don't have any family close by? These are just a few of the practical questions that communities can easily address. At Oasis, we are guided by core values which define our communities. They shape our interactions with each other, society, and the world at large. I'll go through these with you here. Our first one, and I will say we do actually have these ordered from top to bottom on purpose. Our first one is people are more important than beliefs. I mentioned earlier how, especially in my experience, how exclusive churches are and how you have to believe and describe to A, B, C, and D and do all the right stuff to belong. At Oasis, what we're concerned about is the human, is the person themselves, not what they're always thinking of in their head, how we treat each other. And I think this is one of the things that will make us one of the most successful community revolutions that you'll see. Because when you can be your authentic self, you can actually make very good connections with other people. You're not trying to fake it or be something that you're not, or feel pressure to be, those shoulds and oughts. And when you can be your authentic self, you can establish those connections. When you can establish those connections, you can form really, really great community and be truly supportive of one another. I think it's huge. Reality is known through reason, not scripture or revelation. Meaning comes from making a difference. We recently did, some said it was slightly crazy, we went ahead and had a booth at a fall festival in a suburb of Kansas City. And we definitely got our fair share of kind, not so kind words voiced to us. But one of the common themes that I heard people, and I'm not an activist, in essence, that's really not my nature. Really, I love people, and this whole community thing is definitely that's me. But going out on the streets and talking about my lack of belief is totally not my thing. And The common theme was everyone wanted to attack the fact that we obviously were hopeless and meaningless. And it's so frustrating. I won't go into it much more than that. But I think this is just one element. I think we all find different ways to bring meaning to our life. And we all know full well, even if we're not religious, that our life is full of awe and wonder and meaning. But one of the ways we think we find meaning at Kansas City Oasis is by making a difference. And we all have different ways of making a difference. It's not just volunteering or doing things. It's following our passions. Doing things that are creative. There are so many different ways, and we bring so many different things to the table. It's one of those things with diversity, where in reality, even though our country is so polar, if we could just find a way to actually work together to pool our resources like we did when we were tribal, and actually find ways to let that diversity make us richer, it helps problem solving. You don't have companies hire well, some companies do, but hire one same type of person. So if company A hires, 20 Helens, I'm pretty sure they're not going to be innovative. They're not going to be very creative. We need that kind of diversity and difference in people to really build great companies, great communities, great organizations. Human hands solve human problems. It's you and I, not some guy in the sky, actually helping each other. Be accepting and be accepted, simply put. So we've now seen how community is crucial to your well-being, a predictor of life satisfaction, a natural outgrowth of human evolution, and often a missing piece in the average secular person's life. So why is there so much resistance to creating communities like this? Here are some of the common objections that I hear. It looks like church, so it must be church, and I don't do church. The most common objection that I hear is, if it looks like church, smells like church, then it must be church. So many of us either have a history in the church or disdain for anything remotely looks like church, that we want to avoid at all costs. I totally understand the sentiment, but this objection is like saying that we don't read books because they're shaped like Bibles and they read the alphabet. Oasis is neither a church or just for atheists. Only 2% of the identified nuns, now this is the 20%, the one that's on the low end, only 2% of the nuns identify as atheists. That leaves 18% of this demographic needing an alternative to faith-based community. And this is one of the challenges with this, is trying to help with all the different labels, which no one has a common understanding of. If you ask someone what a humanist is, you'll get a different description across the board, especially if you ask America, it's clueless. So we try to be really careful with these terms. But what we want to make sure we're doing is we're providing a place for people who don't fit in church. And that means that it can be an array of identifications that would fit into the N-O-N-E-S's category. We believe labels are literally unimportant. So we don't care what you identify, whether it's agnostic, secular humanist freethinker, Pastafarian, questioning theist. We even have some progressive Christians who attend Kansas City Oasis. We are also not a church. The church means a place of dogma and ideologies, a place where people are excluded, and if you don't think the right thoughts, you cannot be a part of them. Oasis is absolutely nothing of the sort. So yes, you will see the media call us an atheist church, and every time we try our hardest to get them to not call us one. One article, I would say the Religious News Service did us the grace of saying, don't call it atheist church or something like that, so they can still have the atheist church part in there. But we are really big on that because I think it makes it really confusing for that whole 18%. So that's almost 80% of that nun population that are not going to think that they can belong to something like this or be a part of something like this because they're not atheists. Objection number 2. Isn't the Unitarian Universalist Church or Sunday Assembly already solving this problem? Now, although we have much affinity for Unitarian Universalists, and we actually probably have a lot in common with them, we differ greatly in our level of spiritualism and supernaturalism. I actually had on our first day, I spoke when we started Kansas City Oasis, and I had this woman come up to me, grab both of my arms, and look at me and say, thank you, I don't have to go back to the UU ever again. And I'm not bashing the UU at all, because my husband and I tried it too. And the thing is, we didn't feel like we could sit there because we just can't, and I think this is common of a lot of that nun category, that level of spiritualism or that woo factor that you see in some UUs, and they differ across every city from what I understand, we just didn't feel comfortable there, and she did too. But kind of like church, that's the only place she could kind of maybe find some like-minded or find that community support that she was looking for. And I think we have a lot in common with them, but we are not providing another place for spiritual expression. We think that looking to reason and generally, some science or scientific evidence of things is a better way to go about, defining what we might think as, truth. That also includes Sunday Assembly. Sunday Assembly actually launched a couple months after Houston Oasis, so both of them were starting just about the same time. And we love Sunday Assembly. Actually, Mike, Alex, and Sanderson, I'm listing his last name, Sanderson and Pippa are the leaders of Sunday Assembly in Europe. And the main difference between us and Sunday Assembly is that we're weekly. And we can't stress enough how much I will hands down say that you have to have that level of frequency to establish really good community. And that frequency is where we differ with Sunday Assembly. And I will say, as we progress as a culture that's becoming less and less religious, we are going to see other secular communities come up, whether they're Oasis, Sunday Assembly, there are going to be others, hands down, I expect it. And I think that's wonderful, because my whole goal is seeing people be able to connect with one another and have that community support, and from there be able to organize themselves to do other really incredible things throughout their greater community at large. But with Oasis, we are providing a weekly model that really, in our opinion, is crucial to developing really great community. And our sole goal with Oasis, our sole focus, is on creating excellent secular community. Anything else is, secondary, but that is our primary goal. We are not trying to put on, this fantastic event. We do try to do well with our Sunday gatherings. Some are home runs, some are not so much, but for the most part, they've been really great at Kansas City. Been really lucky with that. I'm waiting for the bomb to fall, but our goal is just to really, my focus is on how are people connecting, are people getting involved in the social events, the volunteer stuff, are they feeling engaged, are they feeling like this is something they want to belong to, and we've absolutely seen evidence of that. Third objection, I've been getting along fine without it so far, so I don't need it. Well, maybe you're an introvert, or maybe you just think you've been doing fine without community so far. But even if you don't need community, I can't stress enough that the community needs you. We just don't get a lot out of community. We get to invest in the lives of others. So maybe you're thinking to yourself, this is great and all, but how the hell am I supposed to start a community like this? Well, if you want to be a part of an organization that Time Magazine recognizes the model for secular community, then we invite you to talk to myself or Mike Allison Houston. The Oasis Network is a new affiliation that we have created to help start other oases and help other cities experience the benefits and the power of secular community. Mike and I bring our community building experience and success to your city's oasis. So together, we can literally end the I'm the only atheist, agnostic, or free thinker in my community. We can create a place for free thought that includes families, a place for secular people to build relationships, and we can positively impact the community we live in. Yesterday, I might have to read this, so bear with me. Yesterday, I experienced one of the most profound reasons for creating an oasis. Yesterday afternoon, I led my first secular memorial service for the child of an Oasian, surrounded by a family of people that would not have been standing together 7 months ago. No one should have to go through the loss of anyone alone, let alone the loss of a child. So last Saturday, Kansas City was holding its first, we have a citywide potluck where you have multiple potlucks around the city because all of us come from all over around a metro area. And I was talking with someone else, I don't know, having a lighthearted conversation, enjoying really great food. I will say the secular community can cook, that's for sure. It's really fascinating to see that. I can't cook though, so it's not me. I'm really happy everyone else can. But my friend Josh pulls me aside. He's like, "Did you see the post in our group?" And we have a private Facebook group so that we can kind of connect with one another. And gosh, at that moment when he asked me that, my stomach just sunk. You know, like, no. He's like, I think, he told me that one of our own had lost a child. So I sat down and read it. And I didn't get to talk with the mom. I haven't asked for permission to use her name yet, so I'll try not to. But she basically had lost her son suddenly that morning. She shared with me the next day the sudden and tragic loss of her son Draven, a story no one should have to tell. So after sharing with me, it was very traumatic. She said they went out to the car, just left the hospital, and she said the first thing she thought about was Oasis and how she could reach out to us for support, something she had actually never done before because she has never been a part of church or religious life. She's been atheist most of her life. The outpouring of support and love for this family has been more incredible and something I will never be able to put into words. We as their surrogate family stood graveside with them yesterday and helped them say goodbye to their son. Shortly after, we met at a local restaurant to share a meal together. I looked around the table. There were well over 20 of us, and I had one of those full circle moments. Yesterday was literally probably one of the most difficult days of my entire year. I stood among, though, an incredible group of caring, loving, and passionate people. People who have become my family. People who will support me at my worst and also cheer me on at my best. I mean, they're here today. I know you guys have heard some of this before. Yesterday, showing support for one of our own has been one of the most beautiful and humbling experiences of my entire life. It was a different form of awe and wonder that I have never experienced before. The internet is full of people being so critical of what we're doing. I mean, hateful to calling us idiots and fools for wanting to have community like this. But all I can do is shake my head and hope that someday they get to feel the love and support of a caring community like Oasis. On the other hand, we do have Oasis also to celebrate life together because there are really great things that happen in life as well, from birth of children, new jobs, all kinds of wonderful things, marriages, partnerships. Actually this year I have also done my first, I did my first wedding too. It was a same-sex wedding as well. So we're providing like a real need for people. And at that wedding, actually, they wanted to get married and they were trying to do it within the window of time to where it was legal, which didn't work out. But they wanted to go through with it anyways. And so I just put out an ask to my Oasis community and a whole group of people show up. They wouldn't have had anyone. They had like 2 not happy family members be attending, of course. And then I had this group of strangers who were there just to support them. It was absolutely incredible. I mean, beyond what we experienced yesterday at the funeral, it's just, I can't put into words seeing the tangible benefits and seeing it actually work firsthand. So let's shed the idea that we non-religious are nuns like cats, too independent to be a part of something really awesome. We are all people with passion who care for one another and care for our society at large. They call us the nuns, because we don't fit in faith-based communities. But we are not none, we are many, and we deserve to be counted and connected. I want to leave you today with a post that one of our Oasians shared yesterday. I'm going to end with this. About 6 months ago, I found a small secular community. I had no idea what to expect when I went with a friend to my first meeting. Since then, I've met many wonderful people, great speakers, musicians every Sunday, potlucks, parties, volunteer work. We experienced so many fun times. Today, we are gathering again, unfortunately, under heartbreaking circumstances. A member has lost a child. Many of us will be attending an ash gathering ceremony, showing support for fellow humans suffering from one of life's worst tragedies. Watching a group of strangers grow into a community filled with such compassion and empathy for each other and people in general has been life-changing for me. Human hands solving human problems. Today, I'm very proud to be an Oasis. I think I'm short on time, so I don't think I have time for Q&A. Last what you went over to. If you guys want to talk with me or are interested, I'll be here. I can be out here. So I want to respect the time of our next speaker because I didn't get that last one. So also, if you're interested